I'm Don Ferguson, the producer of Florida Keys Dive Odyssey, the video series that unveils the actual GPS coordinates of the top dive sites in the Florida Keys. Welcome to Volume 1 of the series, Galleon Hunter. A few years ago, I went to see my friend Jim Klupper, the branch manager of the Islamorada Public Library. Knowing my interest in shipwreck history, Jim shared a vast trove of information on the Spanish 1733 plate fleet wreck sites with me. I found the idea of locating and diving a vessel that sank 262 years ago interesting. Armed with Jim's information and a copy of a 1733 shipwreck chart, I headed out to find the wreck site of the San Felipe, nicknamed El Larry, somewhere offshore Lower Matacumbe Key. With the proper coordinates, a GPS will guide the navigator within a few hundred feet of his desired target, thus greatly reducing the search time necessary to locate a wreck site. When I first began my search for the Larry, I had no GPS numbers. I didn't even own a GPS. I only knew that somewhere, close to 1 mile offshore Money Beach near mile marker 75 on Lower Matacumbe Key, in a 16-foot deep sand pocket on the inshore edge of Hawk Channel, were the remains of a 500-ton galleon that I was determined to find. For almost a week, I searched for a needle in a haystack. Day after day, I moved from sand pocket to sand pocket, looking for a dark gray discoloration in the water. Poor visibility often complicated the search. Each failure made me even more determined to find this wreck. Finally, one morning, the incoming tide brought good visibility to the area. Suddenly, there she was. I passed right over her. The depth gauge was reading 16 feet.
17. That's it, right there.
El Larry. On the deck of the boat, it was June 1994. But it was as if I had passed through time by swimming down to the wreck. Here it will always be July 15th, 1733, the day El Larry went down in a hurricane. What a thrill it was to find this time capsule of history. During the next year, my friends and I located and dived 15 wreck sites associated with the 1733 plate fleet. Before we dive these historic shipwrecks, let's go back in time for a brief history of the ill-fated 1733 Spanish Armada. It is the 12th day of July, 1733, in the harbor of Havana, Cuba, almost 6 weeks into the hurricane season. The docks are teeming with activity as soldiers, officers, and loading crews ready the fleet. After more than 3 months of delays, the Armada has sailing orders for tomorrow. Over 20 galleons, merchant naos, and smaller ships of Spain's combined treasure fleets crowd the docks and ride at anchor in the bay. The holds of these ships contain 12.4 million pesos in gold and silver, millions more in general cargo, and an untold amount of contraband, carefully concealed to avoid paying the quinto, a 20% tax imposed by King Philip IV on any gold or silver brought to Spain from the New World. Many of these vessels are less than seaworthy and are receiving frantic last-minute repairs for their imminent departure. At 6 a.m. on Friday the 13th, 1733, the Armada casts off on the new moon, one ship every 15 minutes with the outgoing tide. One by one, over 20 ships begin their date with destiny, inching into the turquoise waters of the Caribbean. The sound of booming cannon reverberates from the ramparts of Havana's Morro Castle, saluting the ill-fated fleet. Less than 900 miles away, a tropical storm is headed northwest toward the unsuspecting vessels. For the rest of the day, the Armada enjoys steady breezes. Lumbering along at 4 miles an hour, the helmsmen guide their vessels into the Straits of Florida and the northbound current of the Gulf Stream. Throughout the night, the fleet makes headway with fair weather. At 10 o'clock a.m. on the second day, July the 14th, a lookout sights land. They are 20 miles southwest of present-day Sombrero Reef. The brilliant sunshine does not portend the hurricane, which is now roaring through the Bahamas, a scant 300 miles away from the helpless fleet. At 4 o'clock p.m., dark cloud masses begin to gather in the southeast. The wind changes direction, now coming in from the east, gradually increasing in velocity. The Lieutenant General of the fleet, Don Rodrigo de Torres, expresses his concern to the pilot and helmsman. Angry ocean swells grow deeper, causing the vessels to pitch and roll. De Torres signals the fleet to return to Havana, but it is too late. By nightfall, the hurricane enters the Straits of Florida, headed directly for the doomed Armada. Sheets of rain pound the decks as the howling 110-mile-per-hour gale-force winds overtake the fleet. Seamen scurry up the ratlines to take in sail, thus easing the strain on masts and crossmembers. Cascading swells of 20-foot seas blast across the decks of the helpless vessels. By dawn of the 15th of July, the ships are totally at the mercy of the wind and waves. One after another, these ungainly leviathans plow violently into the shallow white water, only to have their hulls ripped open by the dragon's teeth of reefs surrounding the Florida Keys. The Spanish nicknamed the Florida Keys Los Martires, or the Martyrs, a fitting name for the survivors of this disaster as well. Scores of people sink beneath the foaming surf, while others struggled ashore only to find near 100-degree heat, swarms of mosquitoes, and a lack of fresh water and food. All in all, 20 major ships were wrecked, disabled, or lost. Remains of the Armada are visible from present-day East Washerwoman Shoal just off Marathon in the Middle Keys, up to the waters near Pacific Reef in the Upper Keys, a distance of almost 80 statute miles. Within 1 week after the storm, 9 vessels leave Havana with wreckers, 40 salvage divers, and a detachment of militia to distribute supplies and lend aid to the survivors. A Spanish ship comes down from St. Augustine and assigns a number to each wreck sighted. Moving from the north to the southwest following the Keys, the position of 19 wrecks are charted. As salvage operations proceed, the names of the vessels are assigned to the numbers. The Spanish salvors managed to refloat several of the ships. The rest of the vessels are burned to the waterline at low tide. This allows sunlight into the holds to facilitate salvage. For over 2 years, divers recover gold, silver, and other treasure from the wreck sites. When the final count is made, the wrecks have given up more treasure than was on the original manifests, of course due to the smuggled contraband aboard the ships. Finally, the Spanish abandon the wreck sites, leaving the timbers and ballast to become one with the sea. fabulous oil paintings featured throughout this video were created by my buddy Bill Trotter. Bill has devoted a lifetime toward the recreation of seafaring history through his artistic endeavors. Bill's masterfully executed works graphically illustrate man's ongoing battle with the elements of sea, wind, wave, and weather. Bill and his lovely wife Frida live at the William Trotter Lighthouse Maritime Studio in Apalachicola, Florida.